This slide just shows kind of a traditional view of asset allocation. So you might have 60% in equities, 25% in fixed income, maybe 15% in cash. Within the equities, we probably have some large cap, some small cap, mid cap, international, mid cap value, etc. In the bonds, we probably have some mortgage backs, U.S. government, corporate, municipals. Again, we have several different sectors within the bond category, and we have several different sectors within the stocks. So again, that might be your old way of thinking about it. The way that we think about it is the new way. And the new way is that we add the annuity into the mix. So here we have 60% equity. So you'll notice that we did not reduce the equities. If we go back a slide, the equities were 60%. Okay, so we left the equity exposure the same. What we did is we reduced the bond exposure and we reduced the cash exposure, and that's where we came up with a 20% annuity. So again, the annuity is closer to a bond-like asset class, even though it's indexed against an equity benchmark. So we think of it more as a bond alternative than we do an equity alternative. So if you've worked with Dave Vick, he's a brilliant man, great work with the ABC process. If you haven't familiarized yourself with that process, I highly encourage that you do. It's an overall planning type of program, but I want to show that our program works coherent with his ABC process. So in his ABC process, there's red money, green money, and yellow money. Well, in this management area, where we're using fixed annuities with investments, we have our own red, yellow, and green money. So here our red money is our stocks. They're at risk. We have the same asset classes as we did before. We have the same sectors for the bonds. But you'll notice here, I threw in a growth annuity and an income annuity. Now, what I wanted you to do is just think about annuities as in portfolio theory. You don't have to use one type of annuity, just like you wouldn't use one stock or only large cap or only mid cap. You don't have to only use income annuities. You don't have to only use growth annuities. You can ladder annuities. You can build a portfolio of annuities, just like you can build a portfolio of stocks, bonds, or any other asset class. So again, we look at this in the same framework that we do for any other asset class, and it's just an asset class, and it can be diversified like anything else. So again, you have the red there for stocks, you have the green for the bonds and annuities, and of course you have the yellow for cash. And so it's right in line with the ABC planning process, which we support. It's a good story. It's a congruent story. So again, I make sure you get those slides or that information from Jack, Dave, or Dave McDaniel if you haven't learned about the ABC process. Okay, so now we're actually looking at the allocations of the portfolio. So these are the portfolios that were on the efficient frontier I showed you a moment ago. And so let's just jump down to the bottom. We see the annuity as an asset class. So in the conservative portfolio, this optimization algorithm said we should use 17.91% annuity. The moderate conservative portfolio recommended 47.78. The moderate portfolio recommended that we use 33.47. The moderate aggressive was 16.84. And as I alluded to earlier, the aggressive portfolio had a 0 weight to the annuity case. Now, this is a constrained optimization. So what that means is that we said that global bonds could have a weight of 0 and a maximum weight of 100. We did the same thing for U.S. bonds. We limited real estate to be 0 and 12. We did commodities of 0 and 100. So, we put the annuities could be as minimum as 0 up to 50%. So again, these are constraints. And I don't want to get into the weeds. I just want to let you know that these are constrained, and these don't walk away going, I should always use 33.47% in a moderate portfolio. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying under these set of circumstances, this is what this optimization process demonstrated. So again, this is for more demonstration purposes for today. These aren't actual recommendations. And of course, if we include or exclude asset classes, or we change time periods, or we change constraints, right, or any of the moving parts, we will get a different answer. But again, this is how that moderate portfolio would have looked. you would have had 23.6% global bonds, 0.8% U.S. bonds. Now this is interesting, right? Because it really didn't put a lot of U.S. bonds in there because that annuity class really replicated a better risk-return relationship than the U.S. bond. And so, again, if we can get 4% out of the annuity, in my case 3.89 with 0.75% deviation, that's a lot better than that bond, and so the optimizer is going to forego that U.S. bond and replace it with the annuity. So again, just another observation. So the next slide, these are the distributions. When we talked about earlier, we talked about the distributions of asset classes. The top left is global bonds, and you'll notice that on the far left axis, it has a tail risk of 20%, and on the right axis, it goes up to 20%. The histogram bars are the actual observations. The lines that are drawn over them would be the theoretical distribution curve matching that histogram. So the bars are the actual data, and the curves represent the simulated data. So if we go to the bottom right, what do we see? We see the annuity, and what do we found? We found that it's bound by 0, and that every other asset class isn't bound by 0. So again, that really works well for our statistical properties when we do the optimization because it fits well with these other shapes of these distributions. This is a little in the weeds, but when people try to put together correlation coefficients and covariance matrices, and you're trying to get data and understand relationships, if your data sets, if all of these are not normally distributed or exactly the same statistical properties, you'll get a correlation coefficient, but it's not going to be, there's not going to be any causation. You have to apply some different math to get the shapes to work together, just like you can't put a square peg in a round hole. When we're building portfolios, we need to make sure we're using the right math and science to combine these distributions to build these stable and better portfolios.